This is an emergency Clarity Act update, and this is breaking news. Right, this is not my usual deep dive type of video. This is breaking information coming out of Washington, D.C., and I genuinely mean breaking. Political chatter suggests we could have clarity on this situation within the next 48 hours. Now, I need to be completely transparent with you from the start. This is not confirmed legislation yet. This is based on insider political movement and discussions happening right now around the Clarity Act. And more importantly, the emergency strategy lawmakers may use if negotiations completely stall within the next 48 hours. Because from what is being discussed, it sounds like politicians have been forced to start thinking completely outside of the box to get this legislation moving. And the strategy being floated is something that honestly, very few people in crypto are even expecting. It's coming completely from left field. Because here is the crazy part for me. If they manage to pull this off, it could fast track crypto regulation in the United States faster than anybody even thought possible. We're talking about potential legislation here that could decide what cryptocurrencies are legally commodities, what cryptocurrencies are legally securities, how banks and institutions interact with crypto, and ultimately, whether massive institutional money finally floods into this space. And according to the chatter coming out of DC right now, lawmakers may have given themselves roughly 48 hours to resolve any disagreements between the crypto world and the banking world before switching to this emergency legislative approach. So in this video, I'm going to break down what the Clarity Act actually is, why negotiations are currently stuck, what this unexpected legislative strategy means, and why this could have a massive impact on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and XRP. Because if this move actually happens, this could be one of the most important regulatory moments crypto has ever seen. Let's rewind slightly for anybody newer to crypto. The Clarity Act is basically legislation designed to answer one of the biggest unanswered crypto questions. What is a security? What is a commodity? And who regulates each digital asset? Because right now, the biggest problem facing crypto is not the technology. It's uncertainty. In traditional finance, companies know exactly where they stand. Stocks fall under securities law. Commodities like gold and oil follow different rules. Crypto, however, has been stuck in a legal grey zone for years. And that's exactly why we've seen in the past exchanges delisting tokens. It happened to XRP once. And then lawsuits against crypto companies and projects avoiding launching in the United States completely. And also banks refusing to work with blockchain firms. Nobody fully knows the rulebook. It's basically a muddy world of rules that nobody can navigate. The Clarity Act aims to fix that by setting guidelines explaining when a digital asset is considered decentralized enough to be treated as a commodity rather than a security. And that matters massively for most of the crypto market. So why is the bill currently stalled? Now here's where things start to get a little bit complicated. The biggest disagreement right now revolves around stablecoins, specifically yield generation. Banks and traditional finance institutions are extremely cautious about stablecoins offering interest or yield because they see it as a direct competition into savings accounts and deposits of traditional banks. Meanwhile, crypto firms view stablecoin yield as one of the most important innovations in the digital finance world and in the decentralized finance ecosystems. So lawmakers are trying to balance two worlds, protecting the traditional banking system and allowing crypto innovation to grow. And from what's being reported, that disagreement is causing negotiations to slow down significantly. Now here is where the story gets very interesting. The rumor suggests lawmakers may be considering a strategy that Washington has used many times before when legislation gets stuck. If both sides cannot agree on every part of the Clarity Act in roughly 48 hours, they may strip out the sections causing disagreement and push forward a smaller version of the bill. This is commonly known in politics as a slimmed down bill, or legislative vehicle, or even a rider legislation when attached to another bill. And this is where things become extremely powerful, because once lawmakers create that smaller bill, they can attach it to another piece of legislation that absolutely has to pass. So what is a must-pass bill? In US politics, certain legislation is considered unavoidable. Basically, they have to pass it. Things like defense spending, government funding and budget approvals. If these fail, government shutdowns happen, military funding freezes, and political chaos always follows. So lawmakers often attach additional policies onto these major bills to guarantee they pass. This is known as using a must-pass legislative vehicle. Sometimes you may hear it called an omnibus legislation or a minibus legislation. This is basically bundling smaller policies into one giant bill that lawmakers are forced to approve. And if this part of the Clarity Act gets attached to something like that, like a defense spending bill, crypto regulation could move forward much faster than anybody is expecting. Now, just think about what this means. If lawmakers remove the controversial stablecoin section, but keep the parts defining digital asset clarification, we could finally get legal clarity around which cryptocurrencies are securities and which are commodities. And that alone could unlock institutional investment, bank adoption, exchange expansion, and developer confidence. But right now, the biggest thing holding back large capital from entering crypto is not the volatility, it's regulation. Institutions don't operate inside grey areas. They need rule books. They need compliance frameworks. They need legal certainty before deploying extra billions. Let's talk about the big players quickly. Bitcoin is already widely viewed as a commodity. Official legislation would simply remove any remaining doubt permanently. Ethereum sits in a slightly more complicated position due to staking, but clarity would massively reduce regulatory fear. But now let's talk about the elephant in the room for this channel, and that is XRP. Because honestly, legislation like the Clarity Act could have one of the biggest impacts on XRP out of any of the major crypto assets. XRP has spent years sitting in regulatory uncertainty. It has been in the center of legal debates about whether it should be treated as a security or a commodity. And that uncertainty has held back adoption, partnerships, and price growth. If legislation finally creates a framework that defines when a digital asset transitions away from being treated as a security, that could completely reshape XRP's regulatory position overnight. And that matters hugely because XRP is built around global payments, banking infrastructure, and cross-border settlement. Those industries require regulatory clarity before institutions fully participate. Banks don't operate in grey areas. They wait for legislation, they wait for rule books, and they wait for certainty. If XRP gains clear classification under US law, it could unlock institutional payment partnerships, bank settlement expansions, exchange accessibility, and global liquidity growth. And remember something very important. When the United States creates financial regulation, the rest of the world often follows. That's why XRP holders have been laser focused on regulation for years, because XRP sits right in the intersection between crypto innovation and traditional banking infrastructure. Let's be honest, the market feels heavy right now. Confidence is fragile. Retail investors are nervous and institutions are being cautious, and liquidity is lower than previous cycles. Historically, major bull runs in crypto have usually followed either one of these two things: technological breakthroughs or regulatory clarity. If this legislation moves forward, it could represent the strongest regulatory signal crypto has ever received from the United States of America. And when America sets financial policy, global markets usually respond. Now, I want to stay balanced here because while this strategy is politically realistic, it's not guaranteed. If lawmakers strip down the bill too much, it could lose protections or industry benefits. There's also political risk because legislations passed through riders sometimes receive criticism for bypassing the full debate. So this is not automatically a perfect outcome. But from a market perspective, for people like me and you, even a partial clarity is often better than total uncertainty. If this rumor proves accurate, the timeline could move very quickly, and potential attachments to defense or spending legislation. And once something becomes attached to a must-pass bill, momentum can accelerate extremely fast, sometimes faster than the markets expect it. Right now, crypto feels stuck between fear and hesitation, but bear markets often end when narratives change, and regulatory clarity has the power to change sentiment overnight. Not because it guarantees price increases, but because it moves some of the fear around the entire industry. And when fear disappears, capital usually returns. I genuinely believe this is one of the most important developments crypto investors should be watching right now. It doesn't matter what cryptocurrency you're into. This needs to be watched. Not because it guarantees a bull run, not because it guarantees to stop this downward decline, but because it answers the biggest unanswered question crypto has faced for over a decade. What are the rules? If lawmakers finally answer that, crypto stops being viewed as a regulatory gamble and starts being viewed as a recognized financial sector. This would be a massive institutional shift. Now listen, this story is still developing and I'll continue tracking it as it unfolds. If you want real-time breakdowns of major crypto developments just like this and daily live streams where we analyze markets, trade setups and industry news together, come and join us in the Crypto Wolfpack. Crypto can feel extremely lonely if your friends and family aren't into it. But inside the Wolfpack, you've got a full community navigating the market together. We've got live streams, trade ideas, education, and proper support network. And if you found this video helpful, drop me a like, subscribe, and I'll keep you updated as this story develops. But trust me now, the next few days could be very important for crypto.